Over the past few years, we have seen so many companies tell their developers to change their vision in order to create a product for a global or modern audience, which of course is absolutely absurd. Developers should be able to create the content they feel confident in, and now the Visions of Mana producer has come out and says that they refuse to change the series' identity for Western audiences. I have a few different things to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Now, this has been a major issue over the past few years in the gaming industry because we have seen so many different companies and developers change their visions for Western audiences, which never really works out because so many people have shifted away from consuming Western entertainment to things like Japanese and Korean entertainment to get away from things like identity politics and, unfortunately, the damage the activists within the industry have done to it. But now we have this happening. It's a Bounding into Comics article. It says, in adding his voice to the ever-growing chorus of Japanese creatives who are refusing to compromise their artistic endeavors for Western sensibilities, this is the problem I have with this. Square Enix's Mana series producer, Masaru Oyamada, I hope I'm saying that right, has declared that rather than bringing in new fans by changing the action RPG line's core identity, he hopes to do so by celebrating those elements which have made it popular in Japan for a long time. Now, I have had to talk a lot about Square Enix focusing on the West, and look at something like Luminous Studios, right? They created Forspoken, which was made by a Japanese primarily team, and it was targeted towards Western audiences, and it ended up failing so bad that Luminous shut down basically right after release, and they decided to drop all plans of, all of the expansions that they wanted to do and rumors about a sequel because Square Enix dumped a lot of money into that game. And Square Enix has been known for censoring content within their titles over the past few years, and they've just taken a very westernized approach to game creation. But having this, legendary producer come out and say that they would not, change the content or change the game's and line's core identity for certain audiences, it gives me a lot of hope for this upcoming Visions game. This is one I have been super excited for, and I know a lot of people have been extremely excited for since it was released only a couple of months ago, but I still definitely have my worries because it is Square Enix. It says Oyamada, who has served in his position ever since the 2009 port Secrets of Mana, made clear his disinterest in chasing a wider audience during a March 2024 interview with the video game news site Automaton. It says, amidst a larger discussion of the creative direction he and his team would be taking with the upcoming Visions of Mana, he was at one point pressed by the outlet as to whether or not he has seen a difference in the reactions to the announcement of this series' next entry between Japanese and overseas players. In Japan, there are so many people who have been playing this series for a long time and are familiar with the IP's history, so the reaction has been half expectant and half anxious. On the contrary, overseas players showed a lot of curiosity about the game and what it entails, including if it would be available on the platforms they own. The difference between the reactions is somewhat interesting, and yes, that is because so many people in the West are definitely more focused on, consuming Japanese and, again, South Korean content because it is lacking ideologies and, political narratives being shoved into them. And that is something that people in the West, a lot of people I should specify, do not want. And that is why so many people are curious, but also still anxious to see what, the next big Japanese title, which in this case we're talking about Visions of Mana, will entail and the content that will be put into it. people are definitely becoming more educated, and while someone may have loved previous Mana games, they're going to wait to pre-order and really get excited until they know the content that is in the game. And in this case, it sounds really positive. I mean, this is a game that when it was initially announced, I was extremely hyped for. Of course, still skeptical because it's Square Enix. I never trust Square Enix blindly anymore, but just hearing him come out and talk about their plans and honestly how passionate he and his team are about this game really give me a lot of confidence. I mean, first of all, it looks beautiful from what we've seen so far, but having him also come out, having this individual, right, point out that they are really working towards making a game that they are also confident in gives me confidence. It says the unique atmosphere and design might make some people say it's a bit childish. However, these are the strengths of the Mana series. I would completely agree. Rather than changing these features and make the Mana series, I hope that new players will come to like these games that have been popular in Japan for a long time for what they are. He was then asked if his declaration meant that he was taking care not to let your series identity become westernized, and he ultimately affirmed, I think the visuals of the games are a distinctive characteristic, therefore it is best to deliver the game based on the developer's creative division. For example, there are many types of characters in the series. I think the fun of the game is encountering this mysterious world and its inhabitants, and because of that, we don't have a strong focus on a particular audience. However, we do work on the game while bearing in mind that the series is loved from fans all over the world. And that is a really good statement, at least in my opinion, because ultimately, yes, the developers need to follow their creative vision, and they need to create a product that they are confident in. Of course, they also have to create a product that they know their audience is going to love, but it's not like they're coming out and saying, oh, it's only for us, and we decided that we wanted to make something that we were going to be proud with at the end of the day. There's similar statements to what Western developers have said, but just the subtlety of his words and the softness of how he says it and how elegantly, I guess, he says it just shows the massive difference in the developers in the West versus somewhere like Japan. They are not cocky, they are not full of themselves, they are not rude 95% of the time, and this is why so many people have looked to, again, Japanese entertainment for their fill when it comes to video games and, of course, manga, anime, things like that. And I'm definitely excited for this game, and I think that so many other people are as well. And even though, of course, Square Enix is a giant red flag, hearing this producer come out and talk so openly about how they refuse to change the series identity for Western audiences definitely gives me a lot more hope. It will be a game, of course, I will stream at release. I love the series. I'm excited to see what they're going to do in this next iteration, and I really hope that at the end of the day we end up with a really fun and enjoyable product. But it is good to see them sticking by their creative vision, making the title that they are confident in, and ultimately we can only hope that there was no shenanigans on the part of Square Enix and that they didn't ask them to make any changes once the game comes out. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.